Hello, 5th graders. Welcome to Lesson 1.5, 10-to-1 Relationships with Exponents. Let's get started. Today's lesson objective is I can apply 10-to-1 relationships to powers of 10 and exponents by evaluating them in equations with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. Remember that you need to pause and type this into your digital math notebook. Today's lesson also has 2 vocabulary words. The vocabulary words today are base, which is the number that is used as the repeated factor, and the exponent, the number that tells how many times the base is used as a factor. There's a picture here to the side. It says an exponent is a little number telling us the number of selfies that the base takes. So the base is the big number and the exponent is the little number. You do not need to copy down the picture, but you do need to pause to write the vocabulary words and their definitions into your digital math notebook. In today's lesson, we're going to extend our idea of multiplying by 10 and adding zeros to a new concept called an exponent. Let's begin by unlocking the problem. Expressions with repeated factors, such as 10 times 10 times 10, can be written by using a base with an exponent. The base is the number that is being used as the repeated factor, and the exponent is the number that tells how many times the base is used as a factor. Well, we know that 10 times 10 is 100, and 100 times 10 is 1,000. So 10 times 10 times 10 equals 1,000. But instead of writing it as 10 times 10 times 10, we can write it as 10 with a little 3 up at the top. And we say that as 10 to the power of 3. We could also say that as 10 to the third power, or in exponent form, you can see it's a 10 with a little 3 up at the top. That little 3 is called an exponent. On the right side, we're relating our learning to base 10 blocks. In a base 10 block, remember that this very first thing here is called a cube, and it is representative of 1. There is 1 in a cube. We could also refer to that as 10 to the power of 0, which seems kind of silly because we're not multiplying anything, but there are 0 zeros. So this little number here is actually going to tell us how many zeros are in our answer. The next thing we have is a long. A long is worth 10. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 individual cubes in a long. So it is worth 10. And notice now we have 1, 10, 1, 0. So we call that 10 to the power of 1. Getting a little bit larger, now we have 100. How many tens are in 100? So if we count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, there are 10 tens in 100. So we would call that 10 times 10. Notice there are 2 tens, 2 zeros, so we call that 10 to the power of 2. The next one here is 1,000. 1,000 is 10 times 10 times 10. There are 3 tens, so we call that 10 to the power of 3 because there are 10 hundreds in 1,000. So how many thousands would be in 10,000? Well, the answer kind of tells us right there. There are 10 thousands in 10,000. So if we think 10 times 1,000, so that would be 1,000 times 10, so 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That would be 10,000, and that would be the same as 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, right? So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 zeros, 4 tens, 10 to the power of 4. Remember that the I icon means that you're just watching this. You didn't need to write any of this down, But be prepared, because the next page we're going to be ready to write. All right, friends, now it's our time to practice together. You have a copy of this grid in your digital math notebook. We're going to complete it together, and you'll fill in the boxes as we go. In this chart, we have 4 different ways to write a number. We have the standard form of the number, the expanded form of the number, how many zeros are in that number, and then how we would write that number in exponent form. The first couple rows are filled out for us, and then you can see as we get closer to the bottom of the chart, there's less and less information for us to go on. So let's figure it out as we go. So in the first row, our first number is 1. 1 is just 1, so in expanded form, it stays exactly the same. In the number 1, there are 0 zeros, so we're going to start with the number 0 here. And that means because there are 0 zeros, we would write this as 10 to the power of 0, because this 0 should tell us how many zeros there are in the number. Seems kind of silly. The next one is the number 10. The number 10 in expanded form is just 10. We could write it as 10 times 1, but we know anything times 1 is going to be itself, so we just say 10. In the number 10, there's 1 0, so that's why we've written 1 0, and we call this 10 to the power of 1. All right, on our next line, we don't have all the boxes filled in, so let's see what we can figure out on our own. This number is 100. 100 is written as 10 times 10. Now we notice there's 1, 2 zeros, and there's 1, 2 tens, so that means that there should be 2 zeros, and we would write this as 10 to the power of 2. Now notice that this is not 10 times 2, because that would equal 20. And we're not talking about 20, we're talking about 100. So we're multiplying by ourselves, we are not multiplying by the exponent. Let's keep practicing. The next row is the number 1,000. The number 1,000 has 1, 2, 3 zeros, so this would be 3 tens. So it would be 10 times 10, which is 100, times 10 gives us 1,000. There are 3 zeros and 3 tens, so that means that we should have 3 zeros, which means we would write the exponent 10 to the power of 3. Or we could also say 10 cubed. On our next row, we have the number 10,000. So let's think about expanded form. If this one had 3, then this one should have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to write 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And that means that there should be 4 zeros. So we would write this as 10 to the power of 4. And if you're not sure how to add that 4 into your math notebook, that's okay. We'll talk about how to do it on when you type, but you can go ahead and write 10 and then like this. So 10, we use this little up arrow and then the 4. The next row, let's see, we start with the number of zeros. Okay, so that would be 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Let's go in and add our commas. So that looks like that's the number 100,000. So we would need to write 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 5 times. And this would be 10 to the power of 5. Or again, if you're writing it on a keyboard, 10 and the little up arrow and then a 5. We'll talk about how to make those together, so don't worry about making it perfect just yet. Great job, 5th graders. Let's keep going. The next part of our lesson is our lesson activity. So in our lesson activity today, we have 2 parts. The first part says we're going to write this number in word form and in exponent form. So we have 10 times 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 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is 8 times 10. So you're going to fill in what this box here And that same number should go here. It's 10 to the power of, count it and see how many zeros there are, how many tens there are. That same number is going to go in both, but the second time it's going to be written out in a word. All right. Great job, fifth graders. When you feel comfortable with this lesson, remember, you can go back and watch it if you need to. Complete your exit slip to show your teacher your understanding. Great job.